Alaykum guys. Today I'll be going over different types of interview methods, and this video should hopefully prepare you or give you a small idea on how to tackle interviews based on every type that's out there. So there are multiple types of interviews, and sometimes interviews will be given separately based on two types of interviews. So for example, the first one, schools will send you a preliminary one, which is called the career assessment. So in the career assessment, schools will use this interview to try to find more about you personally. Just find a bit more about you, your personality, and these type of questions are 1 minute, and they give you 5 questions, and they're typically 1 minute response. And this response, they ask you basic things just to find out your personality. So like the first one could be like, if you could have any superpower in the world, what superpower would that be? And in this case, you should probably say things like, oh, I wish I had wings so I could travel, or I would like teleportation so I could be anywhere in the world anytime. Just don't say things like, oh, I wish I could be invisible, because why would you want to be invisible unless you want to do something bad and that makes you, look bad. But essentially, it's typically 5 to 6 scenarios or situations, and they're typically questions asking about you or your personality. Very simple, very straightforward. And this is one type of interview I will not stress, and they send you, this is just additional to the real interview, whether it's in virtual or in person. Now, before I start what type of interviews, I want to give you an example what type of interviews there are. The first one is MML or MMI. Then there's personality tests, which is basically similar to the career assessment. Then there's discussion-based interviews, which is either personal, which like they're trying to get to know you, or they're just topics to assess your knowledge or ability to utilize information, as they want to test your knowledge. And to find out what type of interview you're going to have in your school, you have to research what you know in the school. And this is the part where you go on SDN, go on the website, and see what type of interviews they have. Like a lot of students who had interviews there, they post questions that they received. So definitely go, because sometimes they'll reuse those questions. So yeah, very straightforward. I'll post a link and go where you can find out where the type of interview questions. And sometimes these questions, as I said, they'll be reused, and it's helpful to go through them. Now, the first type of interview I will stress is the situational based, the MMI, and this is the type where they give you situational examples. They'll ask you if you were in this place, or if you were like a store worker happens, and what happens. Or this is normally to find out how your empathy is, or how your judgmental situation personal skills are. For this one, you have to use your moral compass. You have to know what is the right way, what is the honest way, or the most non-confrontational way, ethical way. And this way you'll ace this interview. Sorry, this is not the MMI. This is just like a typical interview where it's situational based, where they give you situational examples. Then I'll give you an example. For example, for the situational based, one question they could ask you is, what is, like, give me a time when you failed, or when you had a failure, or what would you want your classmates to know about you, or what's special about you, or describe your dental experience, or if you have, like, do you have any research experience? What's your favorite work? What's your favorite boss? Describe the time you felt you were disrespected. These are all scenarios and questions they will like, and this is your typical interview. Yeah. So yeah, this is just a typical interview, and the other one before that one's just a judgmental type, situational based, where they just want to assess your empathy or how your judgment skills are. They're both like virtual. They're more just trying to assess you. This one is more personality based, when they're asking you what's your dental experience, blah blah blah. Now, going back, as I made the mistake, MMI, what they're essentially is doing, they'll be asking you and putting you in scenarios where they have fake actors scenarios, or people pretending to be patients or coworkers, and they want to assess your ability of judgment and your empathy. For example, let's say someone is sitting by themselves, they look sad, and you have a relative who's diagnosed with cancer. They want to see how your empathy is, or how your judgment is in terms of patience. How are you going to be treating them well? Are you going to be rude or callous? This is the type of interviews what they'll be doing to assess how you are essentially in person. And this one can be challenging, but again, be very ethical, very moral. It's similar to the career assessment, but there's more pressure because this one's more acting. And they'll be really seeing you for who you are. Just so be honest, ethical, and it's very doable. Now, the personality type interviews, this is essentially what they'll be asking you questions more direct towards you. Like, tell us about yourself. Why do you want to go to dentistry or medicine? Give us an example how you have hands-on skill. Very straightforward again. Depends on like their example questions, and you can just find it on SDN. Definitely go through them. It'll be a great review. Sometimes in interviews, I've heard there's some schools who have a simple discussion with you, And through the discussion, it could be they might even asking you why you're going through dentistry scenarios. They might be just having a discussion, talking about life. And even though this may not seem relative, but believe it or not, these discussions you can find out a person who they are, their opinions. For example, if they're easygoing, if they're how they are with people. And from this school, you can tell that you'll be good with people, or if you have good patience. School like that, they're very big on collaboration. And these interviews are easygoing, but they pick people who are easy to talk to. Something going in, it's just know that this interview is going to be very easygoing, relaxed, not stressed about. You just have to know which schools they are, and yeah. Now, last but not least is the discussional topics, and these type of interviews are assessing your intellectual ability as well as your knowledge about the medical or dental field. And this is less about you personally, more about your ability to assess information and topics. My case was when I went to the School of Michigan. They gave me certain topics and we discussed, and I can't give you specific examples, but you can find those scenarios on SDN. But essentially, they're like, here's a topic, discuss what you know, or what do you think is the appropriate thing to do, or give us suggestions or solutions. They want to assess your intellectual or ability to reason. It's less about yourself, it's more about your ability to offer solutions. And this interview has nothing to do with your personality in terms of how, how much do you know. It can be complicated, but it's definitely doable. You have to do a lot of research before going in. So definitely do a lot of research on dental materials if you're going to dental school, or find out the new developments if you're going to medical school, and definitely check what the new policies are in pharmacy. Definitely research that. So again, overall in interviews, when you're talking about yourself personally, or when they're asking you basic questions, it's like a personality type questions, a personality type interview. This is when you have to brag about yourself. You have to make yourself look good, and that's what I did. I said, I'm doing research. Even if they don't ask you about research, mention it. Mention that you've done research. Mention that you have good grades. This is the time to brag. And one thing you should definitely do, you should not, when you get an interview, don't be like, oh, I had poor grades. Don't mention that. Yeah, I have terrible grades. They know that. But you got an interview with bad grades. Don't bring it up. It makes yourself look weak. And the point is, you have to be ultimate. You have to be strong. You have to look excellent. You have to be very careful, brag about them as much as you can, and that's the best way you will shine. Definitely give examples of vivid stories, vivid details that will definitely shine on them. That's how they will remember you. For example, I give a scenario when they ask, why do you want to go to dentistry? And I said, I want to go to dentistry ever since I was young. I want to go to a field where I can be beneficial to people, or a field that is neglected, and that is dentistry. Because where I grew up in a third world country, and in that third world country, there was not that much access to dental care. And I remember, as a result, my brother, he had to have his braces removed with pliers. And that image, whenever someone sees pliers and braces, they will remember me. And they will remember that vivid detail, and that's how they remember it. So the point is, you have to be as memorable as possible, as unique as possible, and that's how you get selected. My honest advice, again, is I would not stress in the video. You have to be very ethical, like when you're speaking. You have to speak in an ethical manner, be honest, make yourself look good. It's definitely doable. You're trying to make an impression, like whether it's a friend or a big shot or a boss. Be very calm, collected, and definitely do not cry, because that just makes things awkward, and they may not pick you because it's just you might come off as annoying or just too much dramatic. So yeah, just do what's the right thing, be honest, bring in personal examples that are definitely memorable, and that's how you ace your interview. But yeah, overall, I will post the links where you can find the interview questions or similarities and practice, and definitely this all should help. Feel free to reach out to me if you guys have any questions and concerns. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.